a boy whose name is Dalpo. To everyone around him, he's known as the Zero King. Not because he's foolish, but because he's a genius who hides his brilliance behind an act of mediocrity. One day, his teacher announces that a major TV station is holding a national quiz show, offering a prize of 30 million won. The class buzzes with excitement. For the first time, Dalpo decides not to hold back. He's tired of pretending. When the selection test begins, everyone dives into their papers. Dalpo, on the other hand, leans back in his chair and falls asleep. 10 minutes before time runs out, the teacher warns the class. Only then does Dalpo lift his pen, write his name, and calmly start answering. When the results are graded, disappointment fills the room. Most students fail miserably. Then a teacher gasps, "There's a perfect paper." Every answer flawless. The name at the top? Dalpo. The class falls silent. Whispers ripple through the room. Even Jansu, the school's proud top student, feels his confidence crumble. His jealousy burns. And jealousy, when mixed with fear, breeds cruelty. Soon, Jansu spreads a rumor that Dalpo cheated. He tells everyone Dalpo must have stolen the test paper. Within days, gossip consumes the school. Even teachers begin to believe it. Dalpo stays quiet, refusing to defend himself until the rumors twist into something unbearable. Someone drags his late father's name into the mud, calling him a criminal. That's when Dalpo snaps. His father wasn't a criminal. He was a fire captain, a hero who risked his life for others. But in a world that believes lies more easily than truth, no one listens. Not even his teacher, who scolds him publicly for cheating. The only person who believes him is his niece. Though they're the same age, destiny has tied their lives in strange ways. Dalpo refuses to apologize for something he didn't do. When his teacher insists, demanding proof of his innocence, Dalpo calmly turns the tables. He looks his teacher in the eyes and says, "If you can't prove I cheated, then I'll tell everyone you're having an affair." The room falls into stunned silence. The teacher freezes. For the first time, the Zero King reveals the sharp mind he's been hiding all along. Days later, Chansu wins the first round of the quiz show and boldly confesses his love for Inha on camera. The class cheers, but Inha's eyes search for Dalpo's empty seat. She knows something's not right. Determined to clear his name, Inha sneaks into Dalpo's room. While searching for clues, she discovers an English book stamped with a library mark. Curious, she goes to the library and is shocked to find Dalpo's name listed on nearly every borrowed book. Her eyes widen with realization. Her foolish uncle, the one everyone mocks, has been secretly studying all along. She copies all the records as proof. Meanwhile, Dalpo enters the TV quiz competition himself. Calm and confident, he stands on stage, facing his rival, Chansu. The host's first question cuts through the silence. Out of every 43 people, one suffers from a rare condition. They hiccup whenever they lie. What is this disease named after? Dalpo smiles faintly. He uses his one lifeline and calls on Chansu for help. The audience gasps. Dalpo taunts, "TF'll crush you today, I'll slap you 10 times. The crowd laughs. But beneath that smirk, Dalpo's eyes are filled with something darker: pain, memory, and purpose. His answer is confident and clear. Pinocchio. The host announces it correct. Applause erupts. The audience cheers for the once stupid boy who has just proven his brilliance. But the name Pinocchio triggers something deep inside Dalpo, a wound buried in his past. Years ago, his real name wasn't Dalpo. It was Ki Ham-young, the son of a proud fire captain, who was loved and respected by everyone in town. Ham-young lived happily with his parents and his older brother, Jam-young, until one night when tragedy struck. A massive fire broke out at a factory. The manager lied to the fire crew, saying 2 workers were trapped inside. He didn't mention the dangerous chemicals stored there. Dalpo's father, devoted to saving lives, rushed in with his men. But those trapped workers had already escaped. They were the ones who started the fire. Moments later, the factory exploded. 9 firefighters were killed instantly. When the ashes settled, only 8 bodies were recovered. And then, a witness claimed he saw Dalpo's father alive, walking in the rain. That witness had Pinocchio syndrome, a condition that causes hiccups when one lies. So the media believed him without question. They twisted the truth. They painted the fire captain as a coward who ran away, abandoning his men. The leading voice behind those reports was a woman named Ms. Songa, reporter, hungry for fame and ratings. That same Ms. Song was Inha's mother. The story went viral. The public was outraged. They hurled insults, threats, and shame at Dalpo's family. His mother couldn't take the cruelty anymore. When Jamyung came home, all he found was one of his little brother's shoes and a note. In his grief, he screamed into the night, furious at the world, furious at the media, furious at the lies. But somehow, young Hamyung survived. An old man with Alzheimer's found him washed ashore and mistook him for his long-lost son. The man took him home and cared for him. He gave him a new name, Choi Dalpo. Dalpo grew up with the old man's real son, Choi, and granddaughter, Inha. They became his new family. Over time, he grew to love them deeply. But fate had one final twist. The woman who destroyed his real family turned out to be Inha's mother. From that day, Dalpo began to distance himself from Inha. He teased her, mocked her, and acted like he hated her. In truth, he loved her more than anything, but he couldn't allow himself to fall for the daughter of the person who had ruined his life. When Inha risked everything to defend him against the cheating rumors, Dalpo's heart ached with pride and pain. That's why he entered the quiz show, not for revenge, not for fame, but to prove her faith in him was never misplaced. He defeated Chansu with ease. But the victory wasn't about glory. It was about reclaiming his dignity and his father's honor. Later that night, rain poured over the quiet fishing village. Dalpo walked home, soaked and thoughtful. At a small bus stop, he saw Inha asleep on a bench, an umbrella by her side. He watched her gently, a bittersweet smile crossing his face. When Inha woke up, she rushed to him with the broken umbrella. He laughed and placed a traffic cone on her head to keep her dry. They both smiled, knowing neither could say what they truly felt. Dalpo loved the daughter of the woman who destroyed his family, and that truth was a cage he couldn't escape. Years passed. Dalpo became a taxi driver, quietly supporting his adoptive family. Inha chased her dream of becoming a reporter, even though her Pinocchio syndrome made it nearly impossible. Every time she lied, she hiccuped uncontrollably. She failed 34 job interviews, but she refused to give up. Dalpo admired her determination. He'd lost everything to the media once, yet here she was, wanting to rebuild her life inside that same world. One morning, Dalpo drove her to her 35th interview. He teased her to calm her nerves, and she playfully hit him. The moment was light, ordinary, but beneath it, there was tenderness neither dared to show. At the company, Inha's confidence faded when she saw her mother for the first time in years. She ran to her with hope, only to be met with cold indifference. During the interview, the panel mocked her for her condition. Her mother looked at her with disappointment and said, "A reporter who can't lie is useless." The truth is often built on lies. The words cut deep. Inha failed again, but this time she didn't just lose an interview, she lost her faith in her mother. She called the number she thought belonged to her and cried, demanding to know why she was being mocked. The person on the other end stayed silent. When he finally whispered, "I'm sorry," it was Dalpo, the one person who really cared for her, listening quietly on the other end. Later that night, Inha packed her bags, planning to leave home for good. Dalpo found her on the rooftop, ready to burn her books. He tried to stop her, asking if she truly wanted to give up. She said yes, but her hiccups betrayed her. She broke down in tears, admitting she couldn't stop lying to herself. She still wanted to be a reporter. Dalpo took her hand and said, "Then let's become reporters down there." It wasn't just about her dream anymore. For Dalpo, it was a chance to face the truth, to expose the kind of journalism that had destroyed his family and clear his father's name. From that day forward, they studied together. They encouraged each other through sleepless nights. Dalpo learned years of journalism in 1 month, his sharp mind working like fire. The old man noticed. Though he'd always known Dalpo wasn't really his son, he loved him all the same. He took him to a tailor, dressed him in a clean suit, and said proudly, "Go live your own life." Tears welled in Dalpo's eyes. For the first time, someone had given him the freedom to stop pretending. When the results were announced, both Dalpo and Inha passed the reporter's exam. They celebrated, unaware that fate was once again waiting for them with a cruel, familiar test. Their first assignment as trainee reporters would be to discuss a historic case. The case that had defined Dalpo's life. The factory fire that killed his father. As the panel debated who was at fault, Inha spoke calmly, saying it was an unfortunate mistake, that no one was truly to blame. Dalpo's voice trembled. He erupted with anger. No one to blame! The witness and the reporters, they should have known the power of their words. The room went silent. Inha looked at him, stunned. In that moment, she realized he wasn't just angry, he was broken. She had unknowingly touched a wound that had never healed. Dalpo stormed out, his past flooding back like a wave he could no longer fight. The truth he'd buried for years was clawing its way to the surface. And this was only the beginning. After the debate, Dalpo couldn't control his emotions. The rage and grief he had buried for 13 long years finally came to the surface. He walked out of the interview room, struggling to breathe. The memory of his father's name being dragged through the mud haunted him. And now, standing in a newsroom filled with bright lights and empty words, he realized how deep that wound still ran. While Dalpo tried to make peace with this truth, his older brother, Jamyung, had gone down a darker path. Consumed by rage and despair, Jamyung vowed to take revenge on every person who had ruined their father's name. He began with the factory manager who had shifted the blame all those years ago. Posing as a friend, he lured the man to a remote location, locked him inside a well, and left him there to die. One by one, Jamyung hunted down the men responsible for the tragedy. The workers who caused the fire, the manager who lied. He killed them all. To the world, they disappeared mysteriously. To Jamyung, justice had finally begun. Dalpo, now working as a rookie reporter, didn't yet know what his brother had done. He was busy learning the ropes of journalism, competing with Inha and a fellow trainee named Seo, who secretly harbored feelings for her. But destiny, as always, had other plans. One day, Dalpo and Inha were assigned to cover stories at the local police station. There, he ran into his old classmate, Chan-su, now a police officer. The once cocky student greeted Dalpo with respect, but their reunion was cut short when Inha arrived. The two reporters were tasked with finding a story worth publishing, but all they could find was exhaustion, rejection, and disappointment. While searching for leads, they heard about a woman who had died after excessive exercise. It seemed like a simple human interest story. Dalpo and his partner Yun quickly took notes, while Inha begged Chan-su for details. But another team of reporters stole their idea, and a race began. Who would uncover the truth first? Dalpo's instincts told him something wasn't right. The initial report claimed the woman died trying to lose weight to win back her husband. But when he met the woman's grieving family, he discovered the heartbreaking truth. She hadn't been dieting out of vanity. She had been preparing for surgery to donate part of her liver to her sick daughter. She died trying to save her child. Dalpo's eyes filled with guilt. His own news station had already aired the false story. A mother's love had been twisted into something shallow and shameful. The next day, Miss Song, Inha's mother, reported the corrected version, turning the tragedy into her own victory. Her company's credibility rose, while Dalpo's newsroom suffered. For the first time, Dalpo felt the crushing guilt of being on the wrong side of the truth. He sat alone in the newsroom late that night, staring at his reflection in the dark window. He had become the very thing he once despised, a reporter who had hurt innocent people with careless words. He told his adoptive father that he wanted to quit, that being a reporter was meaningless. The old man simply looked at him and said, "You're not quitting because it's meaningless. You're quitting because you're afraid those words hit Dalpo harder than any scolding could." He stayed up that night, thinking about his father, his mother, and all the people who had believed lies because of people like him. And then, for the first time in years, he stopped running. Dalpo decided to return to work, determined to be the kind of reporter his father would have been proud of. Soon, a new case came in, a shocking one. A truck driver had risked his life to save a boy, had turned into something cold and sharp. Dalpo later learned from police records that the man Jam Young had once worked for, the factory manager who caused their father's death, had gone missing. Dalpo's gut told him the truth. His brother had killed him. As he dug deeper, the web of revenge became clear. Jam Young had turned into the very monster their father had been accused of being. Still, Dalpo couldn't bring himself to expose him. He couldn't hand over his brother to the world. Not yet. Meanwhile, Miss Song, oblivious to the storm approaching, continued chasing fame. She even invited Jam Young onto her show to boost her ratings. Dalpo's heart sank. He knew exactly what his brother intended to do. He would use the broadcast to destroy the woman who had destroyed their family. Inha, unaware of the danger, prepared to cover the same story. Dalpo warned her again and again to stay away from Jam Young, but she refused. "A man who risked his life to save a child isn't dangerous," she said. Her words cut deep. Dalpo couldn't tell her the truth, that the man she trusted was her lover's brother, and a murderer. When Jam Young and Miss Song finally met on live television, the tension in the room was unbearable. Miss Song introduced him as a hero. Jam Young smiled, the perfect guest, until she played a video clip from 13 years ago, the very interview she had twisted to frame their father. Jam Young's expression changed. His voice trembled with fury as he said, "Why don't you show the unedited footage? Why don't you tell them how you destroyed a hero's life?" Ms. Song froze. The cameras kept rolling. Jam Young's voice grew louder. 13 years ago, you turned a firefighter into a fugitive. Now you're turning a murderer into a hero. The audience gasped. At that same moment, Dalpo arrived at the station, desperate to stop him. But he was too late. Jam Young had already confessed, both to his crimes and to the truth. In the aftermath, Dalpo stepped in front of the cameras. With steady hands and a trembling heart, he said the words he had hidden for years. "I am Ki Ham Young."
Only then do his adoptive father and younger brother finally learn his real identity. Back home, Dalpo decides to say goodbye to his adoptive father. The life here is so happy that he feels so guilty for Jam Young, so he needs his father to dissolve his adoption. The old man falls into deep sorrow. Inha, hiding in her room, can no longer hold back her tears. Not long after, Jam Young is taken to the crime scene for reenactment. The waiting reporters swarm him, and the scene looks exactly like 13 years ago. But this time, he is no longer the victim, he is the avenger. Meanwhile, Miss Song's career suffers a heavy blow. Soon, more false reports about Miss Song are exposed. The public is outraged, with some even protesting outside the company, demanding her resignation. And Dalpo questions Ms. Song to confirm whether she had followed the proper procedure back then. Faced with the questions, Ms. Song insists that she doesn't need to respond to every rumor. Dalpo coldly retorts, "Can you prove that it's just a rumor?" This is exactly what Ms. Song asked him years ago. Ms. Song emphasizes that she has testimonies from the deceased's family and mentions that there was a suicide note. But Dalpo keeps pressing one question: did you check the death certificate? Eventually, Ms. Song loses her temper and snaps, there was no reason to. Hearing this answer, Dalpo leaves, satisfied. Later, he learns from Seo that the driver's colleague confirms that he indeed had heart disease. Yoon also says that the driver's brother personally admits that it was not a suicide. Despite all the evidence showing that Ms. Song fabricated the story, Dalpo still feels that something is off. Just then, In-ha sends a text saying the death certificate is real. Not long ago, the doctor confirmed that the driver's death certificate was forged. She doesn't want to disappoint Dalpo, so she decides to tear up the document. Just then, Dalpo suddenly appears, and In-ha instinctively tries to run away. Eventually, under Dalpo's repeated questioning, she admits the truth. Mr. Park fooled them. Dalpo breaks down. He was just one step away from success, but the truth shatters all his hopes. When he returns home, he finds his adoptive father and younger brother waiting for him. He wants to keep his distance from them, but 13 years of family bonds aren't so easy to sever. Before leaving, the old man solemnly tells Dalpo, "I won't dissolve your adoption. No matter what anyone say, you are my son for life." After they leave, Dalpo opens the gift his father left for him and is deeply moved. He tightly holds the scarf, feeling the warmth from his family. In surprise, Ms. Song then holds a press conference, openly apologizes for her past misconduct. She also announces her resignation and accepts the consequences. Soon after, Dalpo visits his brother in prison and shares the good news. Jae-myung feels relieved that his younger brother doesn't go astray, but instead makes Ms. Song realize what it means to be a real reporter. Meanwhile, Ms. Song is packing her things at the company. Suddenly, the box splits open and everything scatters on the floor. In-ha steps forward to help and asks what she plans to do next. Ms. Song doesn't answer, only tells In-ha to be a good reporter and not to end up like her. When Dalpo decides to face his feelings for In-ha, he approaches her and apologizes for hurting her mother. In-ha doesn't blame him. Instead, she feels sorry for everything he has gone through. Dalpo then gathers his courage and confesses his love, and In-ha responds with the same feelings. But since the old man cherishes Dalpo as his son, the two of them can only continue living as uncle and niece. Choi, who already senses their relationship, decides to support their love. He tells his father that Dalpo has loved In-ha for more than 10 years. Still, because they are legally family, they must suppress their feelings. Only then does the old man realize that his stubbornness has stood in the way of a beautiful love. The next day, he tells Dalpo that he has applied to cancel the adoption. He explains that he cherished Dalpo too much, that he was being stubborn. He also thanks him for living as his son for all these years. Dalpo's eyes fill with tears as he replies, "Thank you for raising me, Dad." Not long after, the couple walks into a bridal shop to try on wedding outfits. Their family is stunned by how radiant they look. At this moment, In-ha finally asks the question that has lingered in her heart since middle school. "Why did you want to go on the quiz show back then?" Dalpo gently kisses her and answers, "Because I like you."